Welcome back to the preview show. That's all you're getting today. I am not feeling well. I have a cold. Thank you very much. I'm Casey Campbell. Of course, that's Mitchell Brewer from News from the Pits and God, whatever else he does. How's it going, man?
It's going good. How about yourself?
Doing well. It's championship week. 4 champions will be crowned this weekend. Oh my goodness. It is. I cannot believe that this week is already here. There's a lot of storylines heading into it. I think we all know what happened in Martinsville, and I don't want to talk about it again. But we do have we got 3 championship fours, and then we got 7 guys who are eligible for the Argo West Championship.
It's crazy. I think I'm the most excited for that Arco West Championship just because there's 7 guys up there in a 36 car field. That's going to be crazy.
Yeah, of course, we talked about it on the ARCA preview show earlier this week. Charlie went over some scenarios, which you'll get, I don't know. It's a lot of math and a lot of things, and I don't want to do anything because it'll just get way too confusing. So basically, Jesse Love's in the best position. There's a lot of things that have to happen. Once I get those scenarios from ARCA, I will post them on my Twitter account. So, yeah. Besides that, what are you going to look into? Because you got all these guys, the 7 guys that are going to run for the championship, but then you got all these other guys who are just out there to win the race.
This is true. And you got Ty Gibbs in that field too, which is automatically, that's the guy that you kind of have to watch where it's just like, oh boy, is he going to just come out and just destroy everybody and steal the show again? Or what's going to happen there? I think that'll be a fun race though. With 36 cars, you got to also worry about attrition and what's going to happen with those 36 cars. I think it's going to be an entertaining race for that one.
Well, remember, look what happened. I know that Ty was in a good position to win it last year, and he did not. I think he
exactly
there, and actually it was David Gilliland who won that race last year. But he's not the only guy in the field. You got Drew Dollar who's in there. You got Taylor Gray, Jake Garcia from the late model scene. He's going to be there. Daniel Dye will be there. Sammy Smith's going to be there. Of course, the ARCA East champion. So, and of course, you got all these other storylines that are heading into this weekend. But out of like the 3 championship fours, which one is more intriguing? Trucks, Xfinity, or Cup?
I think they're all kind of intriguing a lot in their own ways. Truck, obviously, you got John Hunter Nemechek, and can he finish the job that everybody expects him to do? Or is somebody going to slip in there and steal it from him? Because it's been a while since we've even seen John Hunter Nemechek in Truck Series Victory Lane. He's been in Xfinity Series Victory Lane more recently than he was in Truck Series Victory Lane. So that one's interesting. You got Xfinity, which is an absolutely incredibly competitive field. I think that one, I wouldn't be surprised if any of the 4 won. And then I think you can almost do the same thing for Cup because you got Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin, which has been kind of the recurring theme all year. But those other 2 guys, Chase Elliott dominated that race last year, and he dominated by a lot. So can't count him out. You can't count Martin Truex Jr. either. It's a lot of fun to watch this weekend. I'm glad I'm not in any of those drivers' shoes because I'd be stressed out.
Yeah, it's going to be more fun than trying to watch last night's Survivor. So there you go. I know you're a big fan of the show, so I figured I had to get that in there. But really out of the we'll get to our picks in a minute, but there's a lot of other factors this weekend. So I don't know if you saw this earlier this week, but I came up with a bunch of lasts on my Twitter account that we're looking at. And of course, if you haven't seen our specials this week, Jonathan Fiel and I have been pretty busy with all that. And guess what? There's going to be more. And I don't know. Maybe Mitchell will be a part of them. I don't know. So we talked about the legacy of Chip Ganassi Racing with it being their last race in NASCAR. Of course, Chip Ganassi Racing is still going to be around in the IndyCar scene and in the IMSA scene as well. I think they're in Extreme E has a team there. We talked about that. And last night we talked about Brad Keselowski's last race with Team Penske, kind of what he did with that organization and turned it into what the team is today. So we talked about that. Jonathan's on his way to Arizona right now to cover the championship. So that's why he's not on here. Mitchell would be on here regardless. But really going through all that, what else are you kind of watching besides those two things? So those are the two biggest things this weekend, and then of course the last race for the Gen 6 car.
That, and I think you got to look at somebody like Ryan Newman, who, I mean, has been a very critical part of the sport over the last couple decades. And it's just like, it's kind of interesting, man. You've seen, like, we've seen the big farewells for like Dale, Jeff Gordon, even like Matt Kenseth got a big farewell. But I feel like a lot of people kind of forget that this could potentially be it for Ryan Newman. And no offense to him, but I think it probably will, unless if he gets like a part-time ride or something, because there ain't really any opportunities there. You haven't heard anything with Ryan Newman's name around it. It's just kind of interesting that, like, he was a big part of, especially early 2000s NASCAR culture. He was a popular driver, and it's kind of crazy that he's kind of just going off into the sunset without too much pomp or circumstances, especially on the wild ride he's been to get here, where we weren't sure if Ryan Newman was going to be racing after his crazy crash at Daytona last year, which was very forgotten about just because of everything else that happened last year. But yeah, that's one thing that I'm definitely very much looking forward to. I hope he gets some sort of acknowledgement, just because he's had a big part in the sport over the last few decades.
Of course he has, everything that he's done for safety and all that. But I also want to get your thoughts on, we haven't heard from you yet on these two topics. Your thoughts on Keselowski's last race with Team Penske, and then, of course, the last race for Chip Ganassi Racing.
It really feels like an end of an era for Brad Keselowski and Team Penske. This is one that, like, if you have asked me 2 years ago, I don't think I would have ever thought Brad Keselowski would have left Team Penske. I don't. It's just those two have worked. They needed each other. You had Brad Keselowski when he was coming up in the sport, didn't really have any openings to go up. And you had Team Penske it had Kurt Busch and they had some success there, but otherwise I don't think they were nearly as dominant as they were with Brad Keselowski. And those two together, combined forces, you throw in Paul Wolfe in there, who was a big part of the success there too. And magic happened and they became a very legitimate contender almost every single year, of course, winning the championship in 2012. So that's really a big move right there. That's one that I think I don't think it can be overstated how crazy it is to see those two depart from each other. I feel like this is kind of like a Harvick Richard Childress situation where it's just like you never thought it was going to happen until it did. As for Chip Ganassi, that one, it's another one where it really hasn't sunk in that they're not going to be back next year. And it's kind of crazy to see a team that has not really like decreased in performance or anything. I think Chip Ganassi Racing has gotten better over the last few years. They had a lot of success with Larson. They've seen a lot of success with Kurt Busch. And Ross Chastain has really proved himself with that team. And all of a sudden, they're gone. And it's just kind of crazy too. And obviously, they leave behind a big legacy in NASCAR. Never got that Cup Series title, but they did a lot of other things in there, and there's nothing to be ashamed of with the absolute crazy resume that they had.
I know the focus is on all the championships this weekend, but there's also a lot more lasts that we have to acknowledge, and I'm going to rip through a lot of them. Matt DiBenedetto's last race with the Wood brothers. He's had an interesting week. Let's not go into that. You also have Ryan Preece's last start with JTG. Of course, JTG is going down to one car. No word yet on what either of those drivers are going to do. I've heard we talked to Matty D last week. We'll see how that pans out. You look at some other guys in the Xfinity. This is Harrison Burton's last start with Joe Gibbs Racing, but most importantly, this is his last race with the manufacturer that has been with him for his entire career. And of course, I'm talking about Toyota. Of course, next year he will be moving to the Wood brothers in the 21 car. Kind of going off that. That's really not got a lot of attention.
No, it really hasn't. And like Harrison Burton, you kind of looked at him. He was kind of Toyota's like golden boy there for a little bit. I think like developmental drivers over there for the last couple of years. You think of like guys like Eric Jones, Christopher Bell, Harrison Burton, those guys that they were really invested in. They're down to one of those guys, and I feel like that really hasn't got that much attention. I feel like the overpopulation over at the Toyota Racing development is just it's very fascinating. And I don't think we're anywhere near being done with that. As for Harrison Burton, it's been kind of a you kind of expected more from Harrison during his time at Toyota. His time with Kyle Busch Motorsports was, I think even Harrison would say, it was pretty disappointing. And then with Joe Gibbs last year, he looked really, really good. And I was like, okay, this is going to be a guy that's going to contend for a title this year. And he's sort of just been there. Like, he hasn't had a bad season, but when you look at Ty Gibbs, John Nemechek going in and winning races in that 54, it's kind of just like, maybe it is time for the two sides to kind of just separate and see what they could do without each other. So it's going to be interesting to see how Harrison can do as he develops in the Cup and where Toyota goes from here with all their developmental talents.
Of course, we'll find out more on Toyota's developmental news, of course, coming up. Obviously they're still trying to figure out where everyone's going to go next year. Sheldon Creed's last start with GMS, of course, he'll be going to RCR in the Xfinity series. Had to think about that for a second. Austin Hill, of course, also going to RCR next year. Last start with Hattori Racing. Still unknown who's going to take that ride. Yeah, we'll get to that later. All right, you got anything else? I'm trying to think of something.
With the Truck Series moves, it's going to be interesting because those are two big heavy hitters in the Truck Series. All of a sudden, next year you look at it, it's John or Nemechek, and you kind of look, those are two of his biggest competitors in the Truck Series. You kind of just look around and like, okay, who's left there for John or Nemechek? Obviously, you still got a couple of guys in that championship for that could be back next season.
Yeah.
But that's going to be interesting too. It's definitely be a new look for the Truck Series next year.
Definitely. I mean, I don't expect ThorSport is a team that doesn't really change that much.
Yeah.
I expect all those guys to be back. Obviously, we all know where Grant Enfinger's going. Of course, he'll be with the 9 team and Cody Roba whenever he's not in the 98. Of course, Christian Eckes will be in the 98 this weekend. So we'll have to see on that. Oh yeah, another big one. This has kind of not gotten a lot of attention, more on the ARCA side of things and maybe on the truck side of things as well. But this is BMR's last start with Toyota. Of course, they're switching to Chevrolet. They're moving into the GMS shop next year. And when I talked to Bill a few weeks ago, this is an opportunity that he couldn't refuse to be partnered with GMS and Chevrolet. Of course, they're going to 2 trucks next year. Colby Howard is going to be one of their drivers. I keep getting asked. I keep asking that Derek Kraus is expected to return. The deal's still trying to be worked out. Obviously, we'll keep you updated on that as well. But yeah, BMR last start with Toyota. This is 12 years that they've been with them.
Absolutely. And we've talked about this a little bit before where, like, especially on the ARCA side of things, they're a big part of that ARCA West series. And it's kind of a question of like, what's that program going to look like next year? Are they going to be as successful with their Toyota partnership? Because we've seen Jesse Love look really good over the past few years. We've seen Cole Moore look really good this year. It's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out on that side of things too. Yeah,
for sure. There's a whole lot of other things and last starts that haven't been made public. I still trying to figure out there. Yeah, Daniel Hemrick last start with the Joe Gibbs Racing, of course, going for a championship. You also have Jeb Burton. Apparently, he has a ride for next year. Not sure where he's going to go, but obviously we'll have to wait and see on that. Of course, a lot of the silly season moves get announced towards after the season, and we're going to talk about silly season because it's been a busy week of silly season news. And of course, one just came out like literally an hour ago. So we'll talk about that in just a minute. But yeah, last start, like the 5 lug nut pit stops for the Cup Series, that's going to be gone. Of course, going to that single lug nut, of course, with the, pit stops are going to look a lot different. They could be faster with this next gen car. Of course, the numbers are going to move forward with this next gen car. They expected that Xfinity trucks and ARCA, I think, are going to remain the same from looking at Bob Pockrass's tweets, but it's that's going to be interesting to look at and stuff. The other thing that really isn't talked about is what happens with Starcom.
That's true too, especially with the numbers that we're hearing that charters are going for right now. If they're selling, they could be making out big right now if they are.
Yeah, yeah, we really don't know. I've checked in with Starcom. Of course, it's been out there that Starcom sold their charter. It's also been out there that Starcom will close at the end of the season. The team has not yet confirmed either of those. Spire has not confirmed anything with in regarding the charter. So obviously, we'll keep you updated as time goes along. If I think of any more lasts, we'll talk about it more, and I'll pretty forget about why I didn't mention it on the show. But we got some silly season news this week. And one more last. Of course, this is the last race for Martin's Motorsports under the Martin's Motorsports brand. It's not the last race for Tommy Joe Martins, but this is, of course, the team will be named Alpha Prime Racing next year. And they made an announcement this week. Andy Lally is going to drive the road courses for the team. Of course, go check out the Andy Lally interview that I did earlier this week on my channel. So we got a chance to talk to him. So that's good stuff there. Who's been busy with Nice Motorsports announcements, with Truck Series silly season news announcements? Nice Motorsports. They confirmed 2 drivers this week. A couple days ago, they announced Dean Thompson will, of course, be in a truck. The number for Dean has not yet been announced. So we'll have to find out there. And also, this was just broke an hour ago. Lawless Allen will be going to the Truck Series full-time next year, of course, with of course his sponsor Auto Park It, driving the 45 truck for them. So the Nice Motorsports it got a lot younger.
Absolutely, and it also raises a lot of questions like what's Ryan Truex going to be doing next year. But yeah, it's very interesting. All of a sudden, and I talked to Carson Hocevar probably a couple months ago. At this point, he came in as like the young guy of the group. Now all of a sudden he's the face of the franchise over there. It's everybody that he was originally with is either gone or unsure about. So he's got a lot of pressure to go back out there and build off of what he did this season. But I think that's a good start for Nice Motorsports. You got 2 guys there that they've done decent in the ARCA West series, and it'll be interesting to see what they can do in the Truck Series.
And yeah, it's going to definitely be interesting. Of course, we talked to Dean Thompson earlier this week. We have talked to Lawless Allen in the past. We're going to be talking to him next week to talk about this full-time deal. Just getting the scheduling out with the fabulous PR staff at Nice Motorsports. So that one there. But also, there was a big news story that got broken yesterday. We now know where Myatt Snyder will be racing next year. Of course, this kind of surprised some people. But TobyChristie.com first reported that and later confirmed that he would be racing at Jordan Anderson Racing next year in that 31 car. Got a chance to talk to Myatt yesterday, and he seems pretty excited about it. Of course, this is his last start with RCR, of course, still in the RCR affiliated programs. But that's a big step for Myatt, but it's also a big step for Jordan Anderson, who has really increased their program this year, especially in the first year of Xfinity. And remember, he didn't run the first half of the year because, of course, qualifying got rained out at Daytona. And because of no practice, no qualifying, he was basically locked out until COTA.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think this is a great move on both parties. You get Myatt, who is still in the series, can still develop a little bit more, which I think is going to be great for him. And then, yeah, like you said, Jordan Anderson, this is really huge for him. He gets a full-time driver. He gets that added help from RCR. I don't think you can go wrong with that move. I think that those are 2 guys that are going to grow, and we'll see if they grow together pretty well.
Of course, we'll keep you updated on all the silly season news throughout the off season. The preview show will come back on, I don't know, really, whenever there's news, we may come on once a week. We also might do some specials that we talked about there. Should be fun. All right. It is that time of the show again. It's time for the picks, and oh boy, let's start with ARCA West. And by the way, let's get this out of the way. Since it is championship week, if you do not pick somebody that's going for the championship, or in this case, in the championship 4, you must pick if you pick someone outside of that, you also have to pick the champion. Okay. Yeah. Who you got for ARCA West?
I mean, you gotta pick Ty Gibbs. The dude's just been so good in ARCA this season. I feel like, I know that's a layup of a pick, but like, you gotta go with Ty. You gotta stick with the Gibbs, as you classically said. I am going to go out on a limb here for the championship pick. I think Jake Drew is going to get the job done, and he'll win the championship on Saturday.
If he gets that, that will be yeah. The Sunrise Ford team has not won yet this year, so there. But yeah, I think the biggest thing that there's so many guys in the field, so maybe always that time the favorite doesn't really win it. I have no idea who's really gonna get it, but as you know, Mitchell, I have a golden rule when it comes to picking the Arca Menard series. Never, and I mean never, pick against Ty Gibbs, and that's what I'm gonna do. Jesse Love's gonna take the championship. Of course, this is his last race with BMR. Of course, he'll be continuing along and being part of the Toyota program. I know his plans have not yet been announced, but Jesse's PR guy, the great Dustin Edge, confirmed to me that they would, of course, be moving on with Toyota as BMR switches to Chevrolet. So what a great career to cap it out in the ARCA West series for that to get it done there. All right, let's go to trucks. Oh boy, the championship 4 is definitely there, but you got 3 Toyotas versus 1 Chevrolet. I'm gonna stick with my, 2 out of the 3 series were the champions that I picked early on. I'm gonna stick with them. I'm going to take Ben Rhodes because he's going to win the championship. I picked him as the champion. I'm going to stick with him. And, you got to win the race to win the championship. Well, you don't have to, but it does help. I think obviously 2019, you look at, Austin Hill won the race. Matt Crafton, of course, won the championship. So I got Ben winning the race and the championship. Who you got?
Man, it's tough. I feel like a lot of people think this is going to be an easy John Hunter Nemechek Day championship, but he has not won in a long time. He's had his troubles, gotten in some incidents on track. It's tough, and I've kind of leaned towards Ben Rhodes a little bit, but I'm gonna take the safe route. I'm gonna take John Hunter Nemechek here, and I think he wins the race, wins the title, and yeah, it's just too tough not to go with him, but I am a little skeptical. I'm not going to say that's going to be an easy win for John Hunter Nemechek.
Yeah, but God, it's between you and Jonathan. You guys are too status quo, man. I don't know. Always got to get an edge on you guys. Okay, let's go to Xfinity. Yeah, so that's going to be an interesting one. You got a Ford, you got 2 Chevys, and you got a Toyota. So lots of storylines there. Who you got, or are you going to take somebody outside of that? Remember, don't forget the 54 car.
So just going to say, you can't forget about that 54 car. I want to pick John Hunter Nemechek, but I'm going to play it safe again. I'm going to take Austin Cindric. I think he wins the race and the championship. I think big thing that's going to be a part of that championship battle is experience. And Austin Cindric has done this before. He has went to Phoenix in the championship 4, went there, won the race, won the championship. I think he's going to do that again on Saturday.
Okay, so you didn't take the 54. I will take 54 to win the race, of course. And the champion, I'm gonna stick with Noah. I think he's gonna win the championship, but 54 will win the race. So kind of complicated here. So who knows? All right, the big one, the Cup Series championship, of course, at Phoenix. This has been interesting so far. All right, who do you? Okay, I'll take this one. So obviously my pick was out that I picked early on in the year, Blaney, but I'm gonna go with Dennis. Denny Hamlin's gonna win this championship. He's gonna win the race too. I got the 11 car.
Okay, I gotta check my watch here right now. I think it's Denny time. I think it is Denny Hamlin's year to win this title. And I originally had Chase Elliott winning the title this year, but just something about the way he's performed throughout this entire year, throughout these playoffs, it just get that vibe from Denny Hamlin where I feel like it's got to be this year. He's came so close so many times. I'm starting to feel like if it doesn't happen this year, it might not happen at all for Denny Hamlin. And I think it's got to happen for Denny Hamlin, so I'm taking him this weekend as well.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, obviously, Denny has said many times he does not need a championship. Obviously, he would like one, but he does not need a change. He's accomplished a lot in his career. I mean, obviously, you don't want to be remembered, as is Mark Martin, of course, who didn't win the championship. Sorry, Slap Shoes. But who knows? We'll have to see. It's gonna be a jam-packed weekend, but yeah, this is the last preview show for the regular season. Of course, we'll be back in the off season doing some stuff. Of course, it'll be a busy off season with silly season and the next gen tests. But I gotta thank Jonathan Thiel. I gotta thank you too. But I gotta thank also RJ Starcevic, Marty Zakala, Nathan Solomon, Michael Carey, Charlie Crawl, and Matt Tift for helping me out with this show. It has been absolutely incredible to be a part of this. I've grown so much in my coverage this year. It is absolutely back. We won't see you in 20. Well, yeah, you'll obviously see, but we're going to be back many times throughout the off season. And of course, we'll be there to cover it as 2022. We're going to be at the LA Clash to start off. And then I think Larry Mack's already started his Daytona 500 counter. So it'll be Daytona before you know it. So yeah. Well, that's going to do it for this preview show. Thank you guys for watching all season long. For Mitchell Brewer, I'm Casey Campbell. Thank you so much. Enjoy the champions this weekend. We'll be back next week to talk and recap the entire 2021 NASCAR season next week.